Welcome to Daily English Dialogues channel, where we help you dive deep into interesting topics and improve your English along the way. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something really personal, actually pretty important.
Yeah.
You. Think about it.
Oh.
How would you really describe your personality? Say, to someone new. It's a question that pops up everywhere, doesn't it? Making friends, work stuff, and being able to say, who you are and what you're about in English, that's not just words, it's about connection. So our mission today is to give you some dynamic English expressions, some cool idioms, and even frameworks to talk confidently about character. And maybe even read those unspoken signals people send.
That's exactly right. We're going beyond just, simple adjectives here. We'll explore some really rich expressions, a well-known scientific model, and yeah, even get into how we communicate without saying a word. And the real point isn't just boosting your English fluency, though that's great. It's about getting those aha moments. Insights into yourself, into others. It helps you handle interactions with, well, more confidence and clarity.
I love that aha moments. Okay, so let's jump right into the really vibrant world of English idioms. Our language is just packed with these colorful, natural ways to describe people. And using them, it can really make your English sound, well, more fluent, more authentic.
Oh, absolutely they can. Idioms are these fantastic fixed phrases. The meaning isn't always obvious just from the words themselves, but they give you this brilliant shortcut, expressing complex ideas about someone's character. They're almost like cultural shorthand, lets you paint a picture quickly, vividly.
Cultural shorthand, that's a great way to put it. Okay, so give us a classic example to get us started.
Well, let's start with someone who's a pain in the neck. It just describes someone who's irritating, annoying. Imagine hearing, oh, he's such a pain in the neck, always, just when I'm about to leave, bam, extra work. You can almost feel that frustration, right?
Huh. Yeah, I certainly can. We've all met one or two of those, I think.
Yeah.
What about the opposite? Someone you actually enjoy being around?
For that, we call them a people person. This is someone who's generally outgoing, gets along well with others naturally, often a really good listener, too. You might say something like, Tom is so enthusiastic and positive, he's definitely a people person. It's a really positive description.
Okay, got it. And then on the flip side, someone who's, let's say, very careful with money. Maybe a little too careful.
Right. Then you might use a cheapskate, or maybe even a Scrooge. A cheapskate is just someone who really doesn't like spending money, even if they, have plenty. Like, he was always such a cheapskate, even though he was earning $200,000 a year. It sounds quite negative. And Scrooge, well, that comes straight from Charles Dickens, doesn't it? That famous character. Means someone really miserly. It paints a very strong picture.
Yeah, evocative. Now, what about the early risers? The ones getting stuff done while the rest of us are still hitting snooze.
That's an early bird. It comes from that old saying, the early bird catches the worm. You know it. My mom, for example, she's the early bird in our family, up at 5 a.m. every single morning.
Wow. Definitely not me. I'm more of a night owl. But I do admire people who can stay calm under pressure. The ones who are cool as a cucumber.
That's a perfect idiom for it. Describe someone who stays totally calm, not easily upset or anxious. You might say, don't worry, Sam's handling it. He's as cool as a cucumber. He'll sort this out. It really captures that composure.
Okay. And what about someone who's maybe a bit too interested in what everyone else is doing?
That person is a busybody.
Oh.
It's someone who shows, well, maybe excessive interest in other people's private lives. Like, my next door neighbor is a real busybody. It's generally not meant as a compliment.
No, I wouldn't think so. And for someone who just talks a lot.
We call them a chatterbox. Simple as that. Someone who talks a great deal. You might hear a parent say, my son always gets detentions for talking in class. He's such a chatterbox. Sometimes it's endearing, sometimes less so.
Huh, yeah, I can see that. What about someone who, maybe on the surface, seems a bit unpolished, but deep down they're really kind?
That's a rough diamond. It describes someone who might seem a little impolite, perhaps, or not super well educated, but underneath all that, they have a genuinely kind heart, good character. Mike might seem like a rough diamond, but honestly, he's so kind and always willing to help. It's a lovely reminder not to judge a book by its cover.
That's a really nice one. Okay, something a bit more mysterious. A dark horse. What's that about?
A dark horse. That's someone who has greater abilities or talents than they usually show, or maybe talents others just don't know about. It's that great surprise when someone suddenly reveals an unexpected skill, like, wow, I had no idea Nick could play the guitar so well. He's a real dark horse. It points to hidden depths, hidden potential.
Interesting. And finally, for those folks who just prefer their own company.
We often call them a lone wolf. It's someone who generally prefers being alone, doesn't really seek out social situations. You might say, Jack became a real lone wolf after his wife passed away, just doesn't go out much anymore. It highlights a preference for solitude. Not necessarily bad, just different.
Wow, those idioms are incredibly descriptive. And using them, it really does add a certain depth to your English, doesn't it? The key takeaway here isn't just memorizing phrases, it's understanding the cultural nuance they carry. They give you that shortcut, like you said, to express complex human stuff that plain adjectives sometimes miss. So we've looked at these really vivid kind of informal ways to talk personality. Now, maybe let's switch gears. Let's look at something more structured, widely accepted way to think about it. The big 5 personality traits. Think of it like a scientific map of human character.
Exactly. And this framework is incredibly useful because it helps us see personality isn't just, black and white. It's not either-or. Instead, these 5 traits, often remembered by the acronym OCEAN, or sometimes CANOE, they describe personality on a spectrum, a continuum. Everyone falls somewhere along each scale. So it's a really powerful tool for understanding common patterns and how people behave. It moves us beyond simple labels, gives us a more nuanced view of ourselves and others.
That idea of a spectrum, not just a box to put people in, that feels really important. So how does this scientific lens break it down? Walk us through the first one. Oh.
Absolutely. Let's start with O for openness to experience. Think of it like this. Someone high in openness, they're probably creative, curious, they thrive on new ideas, new adventures. They're the ones eager to try the new restaurant or, think outside the box on a project. On the other end, someone lower in openness might find more comfort, maybe more efficiency in routine, in the familiar, established ways.
Okay, that makes sense. I can picture that. So what's next in ocean? The C.
Next is C for conscientiousness. This trait measures things like self-control, diligence, attention to detail, how organized someone is. If you know someone who's always prepared, super organized, always hits their deadlines, they likely score high on conscientiousness. And actually, this trait is a pretty strong predictor of success. In jobs and academics, someone lower might be more spontaneous, maybe more flexible, but perhaps less systematic in their approach.
So kind of the planner versus maybe someone who's more adaptable in the moment.
Precisely. Then we get to E for extroversion. This measures how, bold, energetic, and socially interactive a person tends to be. Highly extroverted people are often seen as the life of the party. They get energy from being around lots of people, from social interaction, but it's really important to clarify here, introverts, on the other end of the scale, they aren't necessarily shy or unfriendly, not at all. They simply recharge their energy differently, often through alone time. And they might prefer smaller, deeper interactions. It's about energy, fundamentally.
That's such a crucial distinction. Yeah, it's about where your energy comes from, not just how loud you are at a party. Okay, and then A for agreeableness.
Right, agreeableness. This one measures traits like kindness, helpfulness, the willingness to cooperate with others. People who score high here are typically compassionate, empathetic. They value harmony in relationships. They're often eager to collaborate. Someone lower in agreeableness might be, more skeptical, perhaps more direct or critical, maybe less concerned with smoothing things over or focusing on others' feelings.
So maybe the team player versus someone who's perhaps more independently focused or challenges ideas more directly.
That could be one way to look at it, yeah. And the last one is N for neuroticism. N, neuroticism, measures a person's tendency to experience strong negative emotions, things like anger, anxiety, sadness, stress. It's often called emotional instability, though that sounds a bit harsh maybe. Someone high in neuroticism might worry a lot, get stressed out more easily. In contrast, someone low in neuroticism is generally more emotionally stable, calm, relaxed under pressure. And this trait is pretty significant because high neuroticism is linked to increased risk for some common mental health issues and generally lower well-being.
Wow, this Big Five model really is a powerful way to think about it. And the real insight, like you said, isn't just sticking labels on people. It's understanding that we all operate on these continuous sliders for each trait. Knowing this isn't about judging. It's about maybe fostering empathy, understanding why someone reacts a certain way, and tailoring how you communicate, recognizing why a super conscientious colleague might struggle with sudden changes, or why an introvert might need downtime after a big meeting. It gives you a better roadmap for interaction. Okay, so we've got these great idioms, we've got this fantastic Big Five framework. Let's get really practical now. How do we actually talk about our personality? or someone else's, using clear, confident English. Because, understanding the traits is one thing, but putting it into words, that's the next step.
Exactly. And using some clear sentence starters and also these little words called qualifiers can make a huge difference. They help you sound precise, confident, but also nuanced, whether you're talking about yourself or describing someone else.
Okay, give us some of those go-to sentence starters. How can we kick off a description smoothly?
Well, you could start very effectively with phrases like, for instance, I would say I'm quite open-minded, simple, direct. Or some would say that I am, but I think. Now, this one's great because it acknowledges how others might see you, but lets you offer your perspective. Like, some would say he's rather strict, but I think he's just really focused on being well organized. See the difference? You could also use, I'd describe myself as, for example. I describe myself as a problem solver. Huh. A slightly more tentative one is, I guess I'm pretty reserved when I'm at work. And if you're talking about qualities you aspire to or hope you have, I would like to think that I would like to think that I'm very sociable.
Those are super useful, really versatile. And you mentioned qualifiers. What are those exactly, and why do they matter for precision?
Right, qualifiers. They're words like very, quite, rather, somewhat, a bit, a little, pretty, kind of, sort of. Little words, big impact. They show how much something is true. Or they can soften a statement, make it less absolute. For example, think about the difference between saying, I might be extremely reserved at work versus I might be somewhat reserved at work. Huge difference in meaning, right? They add that crucial detail. But just a small word of caution. Using too many qualifiers can sometimes make you sound a bit less confident. If you're genuinely good at something, sometimes it's okay to just say it directly. Don't hedge too much if you don't need to.
That's a really good point. Confidence in your language can reflect confidence in yourself. Okay, let me try putting some of this together. Describing a hypothetical person, maybe balancing things a bit. Okay, so I guess the most important thing about me is I'm a bit of an introvert, If I'm at a party, I'm probably going to be the wallflower, just observing. But that doesn't mean I don't like being around people. Actually, I love it. But I really thrive on, deep conversations where you feel a real connection. And, well, I'd like to think I'm a pretty good conversationalist in those settings.
That's a fantastic example. And look how you naturally use some really useful vocabulary there. Let's quickly break those down for everyone listening. An introvert, as we touched on, needs that alone time to recharge, often more reserved socially. The opposite is an extrovert who gets energy from being around others, a wallflower. That paints a clear picture, doesn't it? Someone is shy, hangs back in social situations, maybe stays near the walls. To thrive, that means to really prosper, succeed, flourish. So if you thrive on deep conversation, it means those interactions genuinely energize you, make you feel good. And a conversationalist isn't just someone who talks a lot. It's someone who enjoys and is good at conversation, both speaking and listening. It implies engagement, give and take.
Those words definitely add more color and precision. Are there other key descriptive words people could practice using?
Oh, absolutely. Lots of them. For instance, if someone is really dedicated and works hard for their goals, you might say they're loyal, determined, or goal-driven, even if sometimes that comes across as a bit stubborn. For someone friendly, relaxed, fun to be around, think easygoing, social, or maybe even the life of the party. If dependability and smart thinking are key, then reliable, diligent, and maybe an ideas person fit well. For people who work well in teams, are giving, and create a nice atmosphere, you could use collaborative, generous, convivial, like people who enjoy pooling shared knowledge. And when you're talking about communication style, words like direct, efficient, someone who gets straight to the point, or on the other hand, diplomatic and considerate, describe how someone speaks clearly but thoughtfully without causing unnecessary offense. It gives you a really rich palette to draw from.
That's a brilliant toolkit of words. But, our personality isn't just conveyed through the words we choose, is it? Let's shift now to that unspoken story, the world of nonverbal communication, because so much of our personality comes through in these silent signals.
This is such a critical piece of the puzzle. It's a powerful reminder that most of our emotional messages are sent nonverbally. While the exact numbers are sometimes debated and really depend on the situation, research by people like Albert Mehrabian really highlights this. A huge chunk of how we communicate meaning, especially feelings, comes from how we say things, our tone, our pitch, and our facial expressions. Way more than just the words themselves. Understanding this means realizing just how much personality we reveal silently all the time.
That's genuinely eye-opening. So what are some of the most crucial nonverbal cues that really reveal aspects of our personality?
Okay, let's break down a few key ones. First, probably the most obvious, facial expressions. They convey those universal emotions: surprise, fear, sadness, anger, happiness, disgust. You can see them across cultures. Being aware helps you read others better, sure, but remember, your own face is constantly sending signals about your personality, your mood, your reactions.
Right. So even when we're quiet, our face is talking. What about eye contact?
Eye contact is incredibly powerful. It signals interest, engagement, sometimes even attraction. We naturally look more often at people we're interested in or things we're interested in, but it's a delicate balance, isn't it? Too much direct eye contact, staring, can feel aggressive or just uncomfortable. And importantly, cultural norms around eye contact vary a lot. What's normal in one place might be rude in another.
That's a very good point about culture. Okay, what about the actual space we keep around ourselves, our bubble?
Ah, yes, interpersonal distance, our personal bubble. Generally, we have different comfort zones depending on our relationship with the other person. For, say, an average Western context, you've got the intimate zone really close for partners, family, maybe up to about 45 centimeters. Then the personal zone for friends, group chats, maybe 45 centimeters to 1.2 meters, roughly arm's length. Then the social zone for acquaintances, maybe 1.2 meters to 2.4 meters. And finally, the public zone for strangers, large audiences, over 2.4 meters. When someone enters a zone that feels too close for the relationship, like in a crowded lift, we often compensate, right? We might avoid eye contact, turn slightly away, and our preferred comfortable distance can often say something about our personality, how open or maybe reserved we are.
That's fascinating, framing it with zones like that. I never really thought about it so specifically. And our general body language, how we stand or sit.
That's body orientation and posture. Simply turning towards someone usually signals interest, engagement. Turning away can signal dislike or maybe just disinterest. And your posture itself speaks volumes. It can signal things like aggression or defensiveness, think crossed arms or maybe tension, like hunched shoulders. Generally, an open, relaxed posture tends to convey comfort, confidence, and approachability.
So it's not just our face, our whole body is communicating. What about the way we actually say the words we choose, the sound of our voice?
Exactly. That falls under paralanguage. It's everything except the words themselves. It includes your pitch, the stress you put on certain words, your timing and pauses, the emotional tone in your voice, your accent, even how fast you speak. And yes, even those little sounds like or air, for instance, speaking very quickly can sometimes signal anxiety or maybe excitement. A slower, more measured pace might suggest thoughtfulness or perhaps seriousness.
This raises a related point. What about the very first impression, before we even say much?
Right, that leads us to appearance. First impressions are formed incredibly quickly, almost instantly, and how we look plays a big part. Dressing appropriately for the situation creates a certain impression. Showing up to a formal meeting looking very casual might suggest, well, a casual personality or maybe a casual approach to the work. It's often said it's easier to start smart and then become more casual than the other way around. Appearance sets an initial tone.
It's so clear that being aware of all these nonverbal cues is absolutely essential. The real insight here, I think, is how consciously understanding these silent signals, and maybe even subtly adjusting them sometimes, can really change how your personality comes across. It lets you tailor your communication more effectively for different people, different situations, adds a whole new layer to expressing who you are.
Wow. We have covered so much ground today in this deep dive. We went from those really vivid, colorful idioms that add authentic flavor to the structured Big Five traits, offering that kind of scientific map of personality, then practical English expressions for clear, confident communication, and finally digging into those powerful, often unspoken nonverbal signals.
Yeah, and to sort of tie it all together, mastering these different aspects really helps you in two ways. First, you can articulate your own personality much more effectively. And second, you can understand others more deeply. And ultimately, that leads to becoming a more confident, more empathetic, and just a more effective communicator overall in English. It allows you to be seen and understood for who you truly are. So here's a final thought for you to take away today, something to maybe mull over. As you go about your day, think about this. How might consciously adjusting just one nonverbal cue, maybe making eye contact more deliberately, or just shifting your posture to be a bit more open, or maybe even trying out one new idiom we talked about, how might that small change affect how others perceive your personality, or even how you see yourself?
Exactly. Your next step, if you want one, is simple. Just choose one new idiom or one descriptive word we discussed today and actively try to use it in a conversation. That practice is what makes these concepts really stick, makes them truly your own.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really look forward to exploring more interesting topics with you next time on Daily English Dialogues channel.